Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, hockey fans. It is a just almost perfect 10 degrees Celsius, 50 degrees Fahrenheit in a beautiful Bridgewater, Nova Scotia today. My name is Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and welcome to the Sunday, May 1st edition of the Bridgewater's Finest 2016 NHL Playoffs podcast. And that's how we know we're real deep into things now. We've hit the month of May. We had two really excellent games go down last night. The Islanders and Tampa Bay and the Penguins and Washington for games 2 of their respective series. We're going to start in Tampa Bay with the Islanders visiting with a 1-0 series lead. Tampa Bay ties the series with a 4-1 victory. Very convincing victory in Game 2. Shots in this game were 31-20 for Tampa Bay. And what I've started to notice, and what I think you're going to start to notice as well, is now the teams that are out shooting, that are winning the shots on goal battle, are starting to win the games. And that is a turnaround from the first round, where you very consistently, almost always, saw the teams who were getting outshot come away with wins. So we had a very physical opening 3 minutes in this one, Tampa Bay and New York. 8 hits delivered in the first 3 minutes, 4 for each side. The Lightning start to press off of a very solid, aggressive early first period penalty kill. They go down a man, but a really solid penalty kill. They were aggressive on it. They find some momentum. And 6 minutes and 3 seconds into the first period, Tampa Bay has broken the scoring. It's Tyler Johnson. It's his third of these playoffs. Palat and Hedman drawing the assists. Hedman had himself an excellent game. Lightning are going in transition, develop a 2-on-1. Palat goes across to Johnson, and on the backhand, he beats Thomas Greiss, and it is 1-0 Bolts. The Islanders begin to respond after Ryan Callahan takes a holding penalty. They get a power play. They build some momentum off of that. Ben Bishop comes up huge. Casey Cizikas has the puck alone in the slot, puts the wrist shot on. Ben Bishop equal to the task. The Lightning upping the physical game. They get 4 hits registered in a 13-second span. 4 hits in 13 seconds. And what have we been talking about? Physicality becomes offense. 11:55. Into the first period, the Lightning have doubled their lead. It's Jonathan Drouin who has been just flying in these playoffs. He's had great games. Surprisingly, it's his first of the playoffs, but he will take it. Drouin with his first from Val Filppula. Filppula rushes into the zone, drops it back for Drouin. He takes it to the backhand, beats Thomas Greiss through the 5-hole. Greiss wants that one back in a big, bad way. Both of Tampa Bay's goals so far in the game have come on the backhand. It is 2-0 Lightning. The Islanders now start to ramp up the pressure. They start to get pressure on the forecheck, which was, I think, very important for them, especially with what's about to happen. They force Brian Boyle into taking a delay of game penalty for the puck going over the glass, and on that power play, the Islanders convert. 15-15 into the first period. Islanders on the power play. It's Nikolai Kulemin with his first of these playoffs. Hickey and Quine drawing the assists. A nice little cycle. They put it to Hickey at the point. He fires it through. Kulemin gets a great tip. I believe it goes 5-hole or maybe over one of the pads of Ben Bishop. The Islanders are on the board. It's 2-1. The Islanders hold momentum after cutting Tampa Bay's lead to just 1. Ben Bishop is forced to make 3 big saves in the final 4 minutes of the first period to keep this as a 1-goal lead. Both teams early in the second period get into some penalty trouble. The Islanders are still getting the better of the play at this point. The ice, I feel, is still tilted in their direction. Victor Hedman and Alex Killorn both have great chances to go back up by 2 goals. Thomas Greiss, equal to the task, continuing to play great, makes saves on both of them. Cal Clutterbuck, middle of the second period, gets nailed for goaltender interference. And that is just, it's playing with fire. You take these penalties that you don't have to take. It's playing with fire, and this time the Lightning burn them. 11:59 into the second period. Lightning on the power play. It's Victor Hedman, surprisingly with his first of these playoffs. Johnson and Drouin drawing the assists. It's the big guys for the Lightning that are coming through tonight. Another really nice cycle move. The puck goes to the point. It's Hedman at the point. He's got a booming shot, and he just pounds it home behind Greiss. 3-1 Tampa Bay. The rest of the second period, it's very physical. There is a lot of hitting going on, but there are very few opportunities for the rest of that period, and most of them are going to the Lightning, who are in the lead. Opening the third period, the ice now tilted back in Tampa Bay's favor. It's still going that way. They get the first 9 shots of the period as well as misses. So the first 9 attempts, I suppose, of the period go to Tampa Bay. Strome and Marchessault take offsetting penalties, a slashing and a roughing penalty here, middle of the second period, and Tampa Bay gets 9 more shot attempts on that 4-on-4. When the ice opened up, Tampa Bay used their speed. They were getting the large lion's share of the attempts on net. At this point in the game, Thomas Greiss is the only thing that's keeping the Islanders alive. He makes a big stop on a one-timer from, again, I still don't know how to pronounce this guy's name. I've heard the announcers call him Cuckoo, so maybe we'll go with Cuckoo. But my instinct is to pronounce it like Coke, but I don't think that's right. So we'll go with Cuckoo. Cuckoo with a big one-timer there, and Thomas Greiss making a big save on that one, keeping this thing close. But much of the mid to late third period, this game is a track meet. It's up and down the ice, up and down the ice. The Islanders pull Thomas Greiss. They're looking for that spark, and literally just as he gets off the ice, 17:42 into the third period, Tampa Bay ices this thing into the empty net. It's Tyler Johnson with his second of the game, fourth of the playoffs, Garrison drawing the assist, and this was tossed down basically, from his own end. It was a real seeing eye shot that gets down the ice. It's in the net. Tampa Bay's up 4-1, and this game is over. However, there's a little bit of theatrics here late in the game. Matt Martin takes a charging penalty against Victor Hedman. Cal Clutterbuck and Marchessault take offsetting penalties at 19:22. End of the game's getting a little bit ugly. Just a few seconds later, 19:40, Killorn and Hickey are getting into it, slashing, roughing. Hickey gets the extra 2. Maybe a little bit of bad blood developing in this series. The Islanders trying to make a statement that they're not going anywhere, but it gets a little ugly at the end of the game. Tampa Bay wins this thing 4-1. It's a convincing win for the Lightning to take a little bit, at least, of home ice back, heading to New York for Game 3. Of course, in the middle of these two games, we saw the NHL draft lottery go down, and we're going to talk about the draft lottery in just a minute, but I thought it would be better to break down the last game before we move on to some news. So, we're going to go to Pittsburgh and Washington, Game 2 of this series. Washington leads the series 1-0 after a win on home ice. Pittsburgh gets that win back, winning Game 2 by a score of 2-1. Series now tied at a game apiece. Shots in this game, 35-24 for Pittsburgh. Again, another instance where we see the team that had the most shots winning the game. It's really starting to turn around. I think that's maybe 4 games in a row where that's been the case. I'd have to go back and take another look. And through the first 2 periods of this thing, this game was not particularly close, despite the fact that the score was close. Pittsburgh outshot Washington in the first 2 periods of this game by a remarkable 28-10. Washington had 10 shots through the first 2 periods. That's unbelievable to me for a team that is so good offensively. Only 10 shots. Pittsburgh, I guess, really clamped down. Washington was playing strong in the faceoff circle. In the first period, they went 13-6, so they doubled Pittsburgh up in terms of faceoffs, but they weren't able to generate any momentum from those faceoff wins. There is some hitting going both ways. There's no real great chances in the first period until Olli Mata gets a great chance on Braden Holtby. Holtby equal to the task, stopping Mata in close. And then immediately, right off of that play, we had some nastiness. What I honestly feel is a dirty hit. Brooks Orpik comes in, a high hit. It's late. It's right at the whistle or very shortly after it. Primary point of contact to me appeared to be the head. It may have been high on the chest, but it certainly looked like the head to me. Orpik gets that hit on Mata. Mata leaves the game. He did not return. We should be getting an update on his condition at some point today, at least a minor update. And Brooks Orpik is going to have a supplementary hearing that's scheduled for either today or tomorrow. I can't remember which day it was, but that's one of those things and it's another one of those things in these playoffs that we want to get out of the game. Capitals now are starting to get some opportunities in the Pittsburgh zone, but most of them are blocked. Honestly, Pittsburgh did a great job of getting down and blocking shots in this game. They played like the team that was down 1-0. Braden Holtby, middle of the first period, starts getting under siege here a little bit. Some big shots coming in from Pittsburgh. He makes some big saves. Twice on Patrick Hornqvist on a rush, gets his own rebound. Stops a Phil Kessel wrist shot after a nice little dangle to get open. Kessel has one of the most dangerous wrist shots in hockey, and Braden Holtby was equal to the task on that one. Ben Lovejoy takes a penalty. He slashes Kuznetsov, and Matt Murray then makes his most impressive save of the night on a backhand shot from TJ Oshie. Comes across, makes a big save. We open the second period with more of the same. Washington is finding success in the faceoff circle, but they're not generating off of it. They're not even really generating much puck possession off of it. They're losing the puck shortly after. Capitals are trying to step up the physical game. They start throwing a little more hitting, but Pittsburgh is buzzing in their zone at this point, and they finally convert one of their chances. 7:08 into the second period. Pittsburgh's on the board. It's Carl Hagelin with his second goal of these playoffs. Nick Bonino drawing the assist. We've talked about Bonino at length in these playoffs. What a playoff he's having. Bonino with the puck behind the net, puts it out into the slot for Hagelin, and the shot actually deflects off of a Washington defender's stick. He's behind on the play, so he's just getting his stick in there trying to disrupt the shot. So the puck hits Hagelin's stick for the shot, hits the defender's stick, and jumps clean up. I honestly think Holtby probably would have made the save if it was just a clean shot, but that deflection shoots it way up. It goes bar down, and you can see Holtby just look at the defender like, dude, like why? Why would you do that? Just, if you can't stop him, leave him alone. Like get your stick out of there and let me get a clean look. But unfortunately, does not happen. Pittsburgh takes a 1-0 lead. After the goal, to their credit, the play kind of tilts back to Washington's side. They're generating more chances. Now, granted, those chances were a miss and 2 blocks, but they're generating, and that's what matters. You generate, you build. It's something that you build on over a period of time. Capitals, unfortunately, take 2 late second period penalties, resulting in 12 total Pittsburgh chances on those 2 power plays, and most of those are also misses or are blocked. So now both teams are getting down there. They realize how pivotal this game could be. They realize how close it is. Both teams stepping it up to block shots. Capitals look to tie it with about 2 minutes to go in the second period. Looks like they've scored, but it's called no goal on goaltender interference. And you know what? It was the right call. It was absolutely the right call. The Washington player, I can't remember who it was. It might have been, was it Kuznetsov? I can't remember. He does not get pushed into the goaltender, but he just falls on Matt Murray, and Murray has no chance whatsoever to make the save. So Washington can protest all they want, but he wasn't pushed in, and he impeded the goaltender's ability to make the save. Ergo, it's goaltender interference. He gets penalized for it, and it's definitely no goal. Now, on that power play that resulted from the goaltender interference call, Holtby makes 5 big saves, because that could have iced it. That could double the lead. That could have iced this game. We figured it's going to be low scoring. Matt Murray playing well. So, that could have been the end of it. Pittsburgh gets 7 attempts. 5 of them get on net, and Holtby stops them all. And, again, it would end up being rather apropos. Into the third period, very early third period, Chris Letang takes a lazy tripping penalty, puts the Caps on the power play, and 4 minutes and 8 seconds into the third period, Washington ties this game. It's Johansson with his second of these playoffs on the power play. Karlsson and Kuznetsov drawing the assists on that one. Point shot from Karlsson. Again, John Karlsson generating offense, doing a great job. Point shot from Karlsson. The rebound is right there in the crease for Johansson, and he tucks it home. Washington has tied the game. And now the Caps have momentum. Now they're generating chances. Now Matt Murray really needs to step up and show his quality, and that's exactly what he does. Every Washington chance, Matt Murray is right there making big saves. Niskanen and Bonino, one on each side. They take an offsetting penalties here, roughing and hooking on each side at 8 minutes and 18 seconds. On that 4-on-4, John Carlson showing he's not just an offensive generator. He steps up and he levels Crosby at the blue line. What a great hit. That's the kind of hit you love to see, because it was 100% clean and it was big and the guy took a huge bump and the crowd just gets on their feet and they get into it, obviously because it's Crosby. But Carlson with a big hit on Sid the Kid. The bulk of the play definitely remaining tilted to Washington's side. Washington getting the better of the play, but I shouldn't characterize it that it was all Washington, because both teams are really getting some chances here. Matt Murray comes up and robs Burakovsky on the backhander. Goes post to post on a bit of a 2-on-1 with Ovechkin. He puts it across to Burakovsky, and it's a huge save by Matt Murray. And it's a huge save because it was a literal game saver. Because just about a minute later, 15:32 of the third period, Pittsburgh takes the late lead. It's Eric Fehr, an unlikely source, with his second goal of these playoffs. Malkin and Kunitz drawing the assist on that goal. And Malkin literally, he's got the puck by the boards, and it was like a John Tavares to Jordan Eberle goal for the Canadian World Juniors a few years back. He just throws it at the net. He's just trying to generate something, and Fehr gets a stick on it, tips it up, boom, bar down, and it's 2-1. So it's never a bad play to put the puck towards the net, as Eric Fehr will now attest, as he has his second goal of the playoffs, and Pittsburgh has the lead. Capitals start to buzz here. Final 3 minutes of the third period. The Caps get 4 really dangerous shots, dangerous chances. Matt Murray is equal to the task. The Penguins come up with 3 late critical shot blocks, and that's the game. Pittsburgh holds on, holds back a Washington flurry. Washington outshot Pittsburgh in the third period. I believe it was 14-7. Those numbers work out, 14-7. So, they doubled them up in shots in the third period. They were pushing, but it's Pittsburgh who gets that final goal, the last goal that they need. Eric Fehr with the game winner. Pittsburgh wins this game 2-1. Series is now tied at a game apiece. Pittsburgh's got a little bit of momentum here, heading back home. Okay, folks, some news and notes from around the league before we tee up tonight's action as usual. The draft lottery, as I mentioned, went down in between the two games. It was before the start of Pittsburgh-Washington. And Toronto, with the best odds to win the first overall draft pick, win the first overall pick. Toronto wins the draft lottery. They are expected to draft Auston Matthews first overall. The Winnipeg Jets make the biggest jump of the night, jumping from the 6th pick all the way up to number 2. Enjoy your Finnish scoring forward, whoever it is that you happen to take second overall. So Winnipeg. Washington, they're literally playing in the playoffs right now. You literally just talked about them. Winnipeg jumps up to the 2nd overall pick. Columbus taking the 3rd overall pick. Edmonton falls to number 4. Interesting note that came out of this: at the time of drawing the final number for the first overall pick, because that's what they do, they draw lottery balls. At the time of drawing the final number, Toronto only had a 1 in 11 chance of winning it, 9%, with the number combination that had already come out. The teams who also had a 1 in 11 chance were Arizona, Colorado, Buffalo, and Montreal at 5%. Montreal who only came into it with a 5% chance, their chances increased to a 1 in 11 chance. They had a 9% chance for that lottery ball to come out, and Montreal could have had their franchise center. That's how close they were. So, unfortunately, didn't work out for my team. I had tears. But Toronto, obviously, was not the team coming into that last lottery ball that had the best opportunity to win the first overall pick. Edmonton, Columbus, and Winnipeg had better odds. They each had a 2 in 11 chance of winning that final pick. So, we could have had another Edmonton Oilers first overall pick. Now, I wish it would have been Edmonton, because I firmly believe that Edmonton would have traded the pick. And that's just fun for everybody. But in any case, didn't happen. Toronto wins the draft lottery. Speaking of Edmonton, they're apparently shopping the 4th overall pick. Edmonton dropped from 2nd all the way down to 4th. Apparently they are shopping that 4th overall pick. And apparently Montreal is interested. I'll be very interested to see what happens there. I don't know whether it would depend on the package that's going back, I guess. Which I would assume would be Montreal's first round pick, as well as probably a couple of roster players. So I would be interested in seeing what's going to happen there. But Edmonton is apparently openly shopping the 4th overall pick. We spoke a little bit yesterday about Alexander Radulov, who is apparently planning an NHL return, and I had mentioned that he had already had conversations with Patrick Waugh and the Colorado Avalanche. Detroit and Florida have now also apparently entered the Alexander Radulov sweepstakes with a question mark. So Detroit and Florida have apparently thrown their hat in the ring for Alexander Radulov's services. I think he'd be a good fit he'd be a good fit, I think, in any of those markets. I think he'd have the most trouble probably in Colorado. I feel like Colorado's top 6 is a little bit harder to crack than will be Detroit's or Florida's. Detroit obviously is going to be, well, not obviously, but is apparently going to be losing Pavel Datsyuk, so that opens up a slot right away. I think Florida's top 6 is a little bit easier to crack than Colorado's, but in any case, Detroit and Florida have joined Colorado, expressing some interest in Alexander Radulov. And final piece of news from last night, the Lady Byng nominees, or actually I guess it was a little bit earlier today, the Lady Byng nominees have been announced by the NHL. It's Florida's Alex Barkov, LA's Anze Kopitar, and Boston's Loui Eriksson. Of note, this is the second award so far that Anze Kopitar has been nominated for, so you could see Kopitar taking home some hardware here at the NHL Awards. Between the 3 of them, I personally like Barkov for this award, but I could definitely see Kopitar winning it. Loui Eriksson, I think, is kind of the dark horse here, but I think it'll be between Barkov and Kopitar. My lean is Barkov, but it wouldn't surprise me to see this go to Kopitar at all. Okay, kids, let's tee up tonight's action in the NHL playoffs. It's the Western Conference teams who are going to take center stage this time. St. Louis in Dallas, visiting the Stars. Dallas with a 1-0 series lead here coming in. The game begins at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. It's available on Sportsnet in Canada, as well as the main NBC network in the United States. Brian Elliott and Kari Lehtinen will be your goaltending matchup here, and the goaltenders were both very impressive in Game 1. Both of them played excellent games. I think Brian Elliott is the goaltender who is better suited to keep that up. You know what I mean? Like, I think over the long haul, I expect to see Kari Lehtinen have a drop-off in play long before I expect to see that from Brian Elliott. Now, fatigue could play a factor for Brian Elliott. He's played every minute of these playoffs, basically. And so maybe that will become an issue. And I mean, that was a very hard-fought, long series with Chicago. So fatigue could be a factor. It could start setting in on him. But I expect Kari Lehtinen to have a letdown game almost every time he goes out after having a good one, because he feels like a very up-and-down goaltender to me. The Stars managed to win Game 1 despite 14 giveaways. Anytime your giveaways get into double digits, you get a little worried. 14 giveaways in what was a very close game. I mean, that game was 2-1. So it was a very close game, and they gave the puck away 14 times. That needs to tighten up if Dallas wants to maintain their level of solid play in a Game 2 that is going to be probably even a little bit closer minute to minute than Game 1 was. Robbie Fabry is a player on the Blues that I am looking to have a rebound game in this one. I'm sure he's looking forward as well. He was on the ice for both Dallas goals. He was a -2 in Game 1 and recorded just one shot after having a really solid opening round series against Chicago. I think he has 5 points, either 4 or 5 points. He had a really good series for his, what's his first playoff series. Robbie Fabry definitely looking for a rebound game tonight. Another guy looking for a rebound game, Jason Spezza. Keep your eyes on him all night tonight. Spezza did not record a point in Game 1. He only had one shot, and he lost more faceoffs than he won. He was only 47% from the faceoff circle, including having 3 minutes and 30 seconds of power play time. So You're losing slightly more than half of your faceoffs, and you're getting power play time. I would expect a veteran like Jason Spezza, a playoff performer like Jason Spezza, to have a real good rebound game tonight. Maybe he gets on the board. I like St. Louis in this one. I took St. Louis to win the series, and I think if St. Louis is going to win the series, this is almost a must-win game for them. If they don't win this game, they pretty well have to win out at home. So I like St. Louis tonight. I think they are going to keep this series close. I think this is going to go right down to the wire. I like St. Louis to win the game 4-2. Fourth goal is probably an empty netter. I'll take the Blues 4-2 over the Stars. And the late game tonight is Nashville in San Jose for Game 2 against the Sharks. San Jose leads this series 1-0 after an impressive 5-2 victory in Game 1. This game goes at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. It's available on CBC in Canada and NBCSN in the United States. Pekka Rinne and Martin Jones is your likely goaltending matchup. They will go at it one more time. As I mentioned, the Sharks scored 5 goals in Game 1. And all 5 of those goals, including the 3 that were scored on Pekka Rinne, all came in the third period. Now, 2 of them were empty netters and they were late, quote-unquote garbage time. But, in a game that was as close as that, the final score does not indicate how close this game was. So it was a close game, but all 5 of those goals came in the third period for San Jose. And they're going to be looking to balance that scoring out a little bit, I'm sure. On Nashville's side of things, they had 24 penalty minutes. And the Sharks subsequently were 2 for 3 on the power play. The Predators have to be more disciplined. It's an easy statement to make, but the Predators have to be more disciplined. They can't give up 24 penalty minutes. 3 power plays is not terrible, but you can't take 24 minutes in penalties. You just can't do it. 10. Cut that better than in half. But, you can't give the Sharks a lot of power play opportunities. The power play is playing well enough that they will absolutely burn you. It's blowing my mind here that, speaking of power plays and penalties, it's blowing my mind here that Philip Forsberg is still getting penalty killing shifts. This, I don't understand it. Yeah, sure, he had 1 penalty killing shift in Game 1. Okay. But he was a -2 in that game. He had 2 hits. But he was a -2, and for a guy that had 60-some points, what did we say? He was only like a +1 or something like that. So he's on the ice for a lot of goals against. How can you give a guy like that penalty killing time in the playoffs? Give it to him in the preseason and early in the season until he develops his penalty killing game. You can't, in the playoffs, goals are too important. You can't be giving a guy that's not a defensive forward so many penalty killing shifts. That's all. And if we're looking for 2 guys who are looking to have rebound games from Game 1, surprisingly, they come from the winning team. Patrick Marleau and Joe Thornton, they were both blanked in Game 1 despite the fact that 5 goals were scored, and they combined for just 3 shots. So based on the way that, the players that they are and the way that they played in the first round, there's 2 guys who are prime and looking for an opportunity to have better games in Game 2 than they had in Game 1. I think both of those players have better games tonight. I think this thing is going to be close, but I still like the Sharks. I still like the Sharks to win this series in 5 games. I think that continues tonight. They win Game 2. I'm going to give it to them by a score of 2-1. Maybe it goes into overtime. Maybe it doesn't. I like the Sharks tonight to win it 2-1. All right, folks, that is going to do it for the Sunday, May 1st edition of the Bridgewater's Finest 2016 NHL Playoffs podcast. Just a very quick note to the people that I've spoken to about possibly doing a guest spot on the podcast. I've been set back a little bit. I'm a little behind on doing my scheduling, been having some issues with Microsoft Excel, which is what I'm trying to use to schedule all of these things. So once I get those problems sorted out, I will be getting in contact with you about my recording schedule, and we will go from there. So that's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. I'm off to enjoy this beautiful day in Bridgewater, Nova Scotia. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the games tonight. We'll see you again on Monday.